Hi everybody, welcome again to this video. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching. In this video, like I promised you a few videos ago, I'm going to discuss the subject of playing in different keys. A very controversial subject. Many harmonica players that I know, that I've met over the years, they don't see the point in playing in different keys and play everything in C. But of course, especially if you want to play other things, you need to play in different keys. What's the point? What is the point of playing in different keys? Let me address that first. First of all, if you play with other musicians, it can be very helpful to be able to play in different keys. For example, if you play with a violin player, the key of C, to play in a key of C on a violin is actually quite difficult. Much more difficult than of course it is on a harmonica. So rather than the violin player going through the trouble of trying to figure out how to play in C, you can make an effort and play in D, A, G or whatever keys are available on the violin. So playing with other instruments. Let's just call an example. Say your child or grandchild has just started playing the clarinet in school. And your child comes up to you and says, can I play something with you? Because I learned to play the clarinet. Well, there's a problem. Because the clarinet is not in the key of C. So, say if you play together with a child on a clarinet and the child can only just play in the key of C on a clarinet, on a harmonica you have to play a different key to make it sound the same, because a clarinet is not a C instrument, it can be a B flat instrument. So if the clarinet plays in C, the harmonica has to play in B flat, just to make the notes sound the same. It sounds very complicated, but it's absolutely true. Another thing is singing. If you play something and you want people to sing along, singing in the key of C, especially for adults, is not very convenient. We all remember we go to birthday parties and someone starts singing happy birthday, and you think to yourself, goodness me, that's a bit low. And it's quite difficult to sing. It's too low. So that's why the human voice, if you want to play and you want people to sing along to your music, the key of C is by no means an easy key to sing to. That's why in Christian church music, for instance, you will hardly ever find any hymns in the key of C, because it is so difficult to sing. If you want to play your harmonica to someone who sings along to you, then you're much better off playing in E flat or E or F or around that kind of thing, because it lies better with the human voice when you're singing. So anyway, there's lots of reasons. Another thing, if you play in different keys, sometimes the key of C is not always the easiest key to play when it comes to the breathing pattern, because the key of C has a lot of blow notes, as you know. So it can help to play in a different key, so you get certain notes, you get more of a variance between blow notes and draw notes. Some keys are actually easier to play than the key of C. Honestly, some keys are easier to play in other keys than they are to play in C. And then a last argument is that different keys sound different. That's something I've had an argument with many people about this. Many people tend to tell me, no, it doesn't sound any different. How does a key of D sound different from a key of C? It's difficult to explain, and you will only find it when you start playing in different keys. Actually, it does sound different. How? Usually because, you know, certain notes on your harmonica in different keys all sort of become a draw note instead of a blow note, and draw notes sound a bit different, so it gives a different character to a piece. But again, this is something you have to try out to find out for yourself. It's very difficult to convince someone who's never played in different keys to start playing and to say the argument different keys sound different. Very difficult. So you will only find this out if you start to try it. Right, so there's a few reasons why I think you could really do with starting to play in different keys. Another thing in most Western music is that some pieces of music are actually written in different keys. So it goes from one key to the other. And it is just to make the music more interesting, give it a bit of more variance, give it more depth, give it more content, I guess. So there's again different reasons, but of course it's quite difficult. Now again, I'm going to explain this by using sheet music, because that's my sort of way to explain things. First of all, let's have a look at some music. Here's a little piece of music, and at the beginning of the line you see a sharp sign there. Again, this is sheet music, okay? At the beginning of your line you see one sharp sign. What does that mean? The sharp sign, if you can see it, is on the note F. This is an F note. The top line of the 5 lines on the top of the 5 lines on the stave is the note F. The sharp sign is on the top line, which means that's the F note. So what does that actually mean? It means in this piece of music here, you play every F as a sharp. Not just this one, but this one as well here below, and any F, you always play that with a sharp. So every time you play an F note, you press the button to make it sound sharp, to make it a semitone higher. That's what this means. Nothing else. What this means is in this piece of music, every F note, you play it, you press the button on your chromatic harmonica and you play an F sharp. Let this sink in for a moment, yeah? Because some people look into meanings of this symbol. Some people would argue, hang on, that's the key of G, so now I need to play in the key of G. Not necessarily, but it's a good way to remember it. So if you know that this is the key of G major, then keep remembering it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is pieces in the key of G major. It could be in E minor. But again, I'll do another video on major and minor keys. Why do we put a symbol at the beginning of the line? Why don't we put a sharp sign with every F in the whole piece of music? It's because it makes it easier to read. It makes the piece of music much cleaner and less confusing. It's like a it's a bit like a set of instructions. At the beginning of this line, okay, if you start playing this piece, you need to play every F note as a sharp. Here's another example. This is another line with two sharps, one on the F note and another one on the note C. Again, same thing. What does this mean? It means in this piece of music, whatever it is, you play every F and every C as a sharp. So every time you play an F or a C, you push the button on your chromatic harmonica and you make the note sharp. You heighten it, you make it a semitone higher. Now, how do you read this? And I've said this before in one of my previous videos. Basically, you need to learn how to play the scale with one sharp or the scale with two sharps. You need to be able to play, to learn how to play with one sharp. Now, it's just a case of getting your harmonica out, start to play every note on the harmonica, but as soon as you get to an F note, you press the button. So instead of the F, you play an F sharp. Sounds complicated. And it is complicated, especially if you're at an older age and you just start to play in different keys. It can get quite confusing. Because, let me start another way. So, if you get a piece of this and it's got one sharp, an F sharp, you just practice your harmonica, get every note, and then every time you get to an F, you press the button and you play the sharp note. That's what this means. Now, this gets confusing, so there are ways to remember it. And the way we remember where to press the button is by putting it into a key in our head. And it really is like learning the harmonica all over again. Do you remember when you bought your chromatic harmonica or any harmonica when you first started? It took you a few weeks to learn how to play a tone ladder. Blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, draw, blow, draw, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow. That took you a few weeks, didn't it? So, now you have to start again. Learn the harmonica again. Learn a different harmonica on your same chromatic instrument, but you just learn a new scale. You start at the beginning, but remember to press every F to press the button, and then you can play in the key, in the right different key. Now in this case I started on the C. That actually makes it more difficult to remember because you have to get this into your head. Now to get this into your head is actually easier to remember if you get one sharp to play in the key of G major. What does that mean? If you start on the G note, hole 3 blow or hole 7 blow, that's a G. Now, that's the Do. or the root note, the sa, do, whatever you want to call it. That's the do. Do, do. And now you can figure out which notes you want to hear. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. So in your head, you know which notes you want to expect. Do. Do, da, di, do, da, do, da, do, di, da, di, do, da, di, da, da. So in your head, you know what notes you want to hear. And remember, if you don't hear the right note, you probably missed the F, so you have to press the button to get the sharp. This takes time. It does take time. Get used to this. Get used to this. The same thing goes for this one with two sharps, an F and a C. So in this case, every F and every C you have to play as a sharp. So press the button on your chromatic harmonica. And again, what you do then, the easier way to remember this is that this is actually the key of D. So again, you play a D, do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. So you know in your head what notes to expect, which note you want to hear next. So D, D, E, F sharp. C sharp, F sharp, this takes time to get used to. It really does. It really does. And the big trick here is that only if you know how to play the key of G or the key of D, if you know how to play it and you know what to do, then you can read the key of G or the key of D. It doesn't work the other way around. Nobody, honestly, I mean nobody goes to read this piece of music and for every note, hang on, let's check at the beginning. Is this a sharp? No. Is that a sharp? No. Is that a sharp? Yes. Shit, I need to play. That just mangles with your head. That is just too much to take in. So, learn and study the key that you're playing in, and only if you can play the tone ladder and the key, then you can read in G or in D. It really works that way, not the other way around. Reading alone doesn't teach you how to play in different keys, but it does help you to play in different keys. You can always, of course, you can do a bit of cheating. If you see a piece of music like this, you look for every F in the whole piece of music everywhere, and every time you see an F, just put a sharp sign there, or put a reminder or something for yourself. Hang on, that's where I need to press the slider. Okay, and the same for this. So in here you look for every C and every F. Every time you see a C or an F, you put a sharp before every note where you need to press a slider. So there are ways to, I don't know if you can call it cheating, but there are ways to do this. So if you want a reminder, if you play this and you're not quite sure, you're not quite familiar with the scale, you can put a sharp sign in front of every note. So you just have to check all the notes in the music. If any F you come across, just put a sharp sign in front of the note. So just as a reminder for yourself. But the trick is, this really will help you if you can play the scale of G or D, then you can read in the key of G or D. And what happens then eventually, if you know this and you practice G and D, your head goes into C mode, so you play everything in C, or you see this and your head goes straight into G mode, so now I need to play in G, hang on, let me get your brain in the right gear, and then you play along in G. Or with D, the same thing. Every different key takes time to get used to. It really does. And also, of course, your breathing pattern will be completely different for every key. You know, if you play a tone ladder in the key of C, it's blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, draw, blow. Play anything else and your whole breathing pattern will be all over the place and different. That will be very confusing. But it's a good challenge, and get used to it. Please take the trouble, get used to it. And then in the next video I'm going to carry on about this hymn by Vangelis, and I'm going to play that in the key of D. So, tricky subject, quite controversial as well. I've had lots of discussions with Indian people, harmonica players in India. Indian music is not based on different keys like Western music, because Western music here in our Western world, so to speak, is all based on different keys and scales. But in India, it's not. It's a relative scale rather than an absolute scale. But it's well worth trying to play in different keys. One last subject I want to mention here is, what is the difference between a sharp and a flat? Let's just grab a note on our harmonica. Let's get the 3 blow. That's a G. Then we press the slider and we get a G sharp. But the G sharp can also be an A flat. It even gets more confusing now, but they're the same note. So G sharp and A flat are the same note. So why would we sometimes call it a G sharp, and why do we sometimes call it an A flat? This has to do with the way music is written. The whole idea is that the key symbol in the beginning just tells you, okay, you need to play that note like that note like that note like that, etc. That's your list of instructions. And then in the piece of music, you don't need to put any sharps or flats in. The whole idea is that this is completely blank and clear, not cluttered up by sharps and flats or whatever else. So the whole idea is to keep the sheet music clean as possible. That's why we put the key symbols at the beginning of each line. Just so you know, hang on, this is the key of G, or this is the key of D, or whatever else. So you know before you get your head in the right mode before you start playing. You practice the key a few times and then you can read this. So it's to keep the music clean. Now, if, say, sometimes the difference between a sharp and a flat is actually the note that it replaces. Because don't forget, we only put these key symbols in, key signatures, just so we can keep the rest of the music clean, without any sharps or flats. So the name G sharp or B flat, A flat, is the difference is the note that it replaces. A G sharp is played instead of the note G. So if you play a G sharp, you will not be playing the G. If you play an A flat, which is exactly the same note, but then you play it instead of an A, because it's named A flat, so you play that note instead of an A. So the G sharp is played instead of a G, the A flat is played instead of an A. And the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Just let this sink in your head. The more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Honestly. But it takes some time to get it in your head. And I hope you start practicing maybe the key of G and D major. Again, in the beginning, it'll be very confusing. It will really confuse you. Especially the breathing pattern is different. So instead of blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, you get another pattern. Yeah, key of D, for instance, will be draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, draw, blow, draw. A little trick, and that's the last thing I'm going to mention, is any sharp keys, so the keys that have sharp signs, not flats, any keys where you have sharp signs will always have two draw notes next to each other. A and B. A and B are two draw notes. So if you play the key of C, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, draw, blow, A, B, C, two draw notes. The rest is all played alternatively. Blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw, blow, draw. You constantly change your breath. Apart from those two notes that you both need to draw. Every key with sharps, it doesn't work for flats, but we'll get to that later. Every key that is written in sharps, you will have those two draw notes somewhere in your tone ladder. So if you know where those two draw notes are, and the rest, if you know how to begin, so you begin on a draw note or a blow note, remember where your two draw notes are next to each other, and as long as you remember those two things, you can play those keys. Sounds very, very complicated, and it sounds like proper double Dutch and gobbledygook, but it's just true, absolutely true. And the more you start to discover this, the more you'll find it, and the more it explains. I hope you give it a go. Thanks for watching.